Well, thank you very much, Tariq, for calling on me to say a few words at this very serious juncture in international relations. But before delving into the issue, I wish to thank the Egyptian Center for Economic Studies for convening this meeting and to congratulate them on launching the CAIRO Forum and on annual basis, which the economic situation in the country, in the region, and in fact internationally would call for such centers to be active and open the door for experts and even others, the normal citizen, to, if not to speak, then at least to hear and understand the dimensions of difficulties, economic difficulties we are facing. And here I want to say that I'm really pleased as a citizen of this country to see the civil society in Egypt collecting its energy, convening conferences, round tables, several discussions on several issues that have to do with the present and the future of Egypt, and also the situation in the region and the international situation. In the last 3 or 4 days, several meetings were convened to discuss different issues, from the economic situation to the international situation to the hydrogen as a source of power, of energy. And I was amazed that on this highly specialized conference about hydrogen, the hall was full, and so many others stayed outside. People want to know, want to understand. That is something I wanted to express my pleasure about because of this activities of our civil society. Since I'm thanking almost everybody, I want to seize the opportunity to commend and thank the Republic of South Africa for the position they have taken and the policy they have initiated to bring Israel to court and to put the issue of genocide before the International Court of Justice. And I really believe that it is not only the issue of Israel and genocide that has been put before the International Court of Justice, but this issue, this initiative by South Africa is contributing in saving the international system. The Security Council has failed. The General Assembly couldn't make it. The rest of the bodies pertaining to what is called the international security system are not working. And a sense of pessimism is rampant all over the world about multilateralism, about the UN system. For the International Court of Justice to emerge as a principal body within the UN system, considering a very serious issue that has to do with violations of human rights, of threatening the security, the regional security. This is something that will be remembered for South Africa in contributing in saving the system. Then now I wish to get to the issue at hand. That's why I'm here. And about the geopolitical conflicts and the complex global challenges. Several conflicts have been mentioned here, but not all of them, although there are very serious conflicts taking place in Africa, in the Sahel region, in the Horn of Africa, in certain individual countries. Sudan is an example. Somalia is an example. Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo is another example. Libya, and so on. In fact, the list should have been comprehensive and with special reference to the situation in Africa. As my colleague has mentioned, Europe is also a theater for current and potential conflicts. In this, I was joking with some of my colleagues the other day that when we deal with the situation in the Middle East and talk with our European colleagues, what you hear in Paris is not what you hear in London, is not what you hear in Berlin. And what you hear within the European Union, what you hear from the chairman of the council, I mean Madame von der Leyen, is not what we hear from the High Representative Joseph Borrell. Very strange. Several expressions of sorrow, of encouragement, of criticism, etc. But they do not form a position to reckon with. When we talk about the future of this region, and when I talk about region, I mean not only the so-called Middle East, but I mean the Mediterranean also. And with the Mediterranean, Europe is our partner, but it will also bring into the equation so many additional problems. They will not be able to solve, but to add to those problems. In fact, as has been mentioned by colleagues and by you, Brad, the international situation is in a very bad shape. It threatens so many serious consequences. It could be that the first superpower is on its way down. It could be. But it also could be that such a situation would push this major superpower to take many rough and tough decisions that would shake the stability in the world. China is another superpower emerging, moving up. It has its own philosophy about what the status of superpower means and when China would decide to challenge, head-on challenge on the issue, who comes first? And this could happen while many of us here in this room, in this hall, are still living. This situation has led to a clear result that globalization, that we have so many years of stressing how important is globalization, and globalization is the new, what can I say, not establishment, but the new association that would produce a new international system. We see the globalization now, just nobody talks about. But it is still there. It is still there. Several years ago, few years ago, in fact, I heard the president of China, President Xi of China, talking in the International World Economic Forum, saying exactly this. If America is not interested in leading the global system or globalization, China is ready to lead it. This is another source of conflict that is coming up. In short, we are living in a very interesting period of time, but a very dangerous period of time. Very dangerous. Few weeks ago, in the United Nations, a conference called the Summit of the Future convened. And it convened on the initiative of the Secretary General after what he has seen of chaos in the four corners of the world and almost the demise of the system. And by the system, I mean the San Francisco system, the UN system, and Bretton Woods system, that is the World Bank, the IMF, and the World Trade Organizations, and the rest. So the discussions, the preparations, which took almost over one year, and the work that has been done in drafting the final document called the Pact for the Future, discussed 2 or 3 major issues, but it used a new language. It doesn't say paragraph 1, paragraph 2. It says action 1, action 2, 56 actions. In them, it is interesting for us here in this meeting to refer to a certain language stressing the link between economic development and peace and security. If there is no peace and security, there will be no meaningful economic development, and vice versa. 1. 2, it stressed the danger inherent in the failure of the Security Council in its job, and that it will stay with us for so many years. We see no solution in the horizon for the crisis of the international security system. It also referred to what is called the double standard. And the double standard, for those who don't know, is the real, what can I say, the main reason for the failure of the UN security system and the paralysis of the Security Council. This is, if we want to talk about the effects of conflicts here and there, it has to be added. Not only the conflict in certain area or in certain continent, but the way the big powers behave and the way they move from being the champion of human rights, respect of international law, into the violators of international law, or the protectors of those who violate international law. We have seen that in Gaza. We have seen that on TV every day. And we have seen the Council, Security Council, unable to adopt a resolution to ceasefire. While buildings are being destroyed before our eyes, while population, civil population, while people, women, children, even animals being killed, slaughtered in front of our eyes. So how can we have confidence in such a leadership? That is why the general consensus is that this situation with leaders and other big entities, etc., the time has come for them to leave the scene as according to their capacities of today. Here in the Middle East, it's so-called Middle East, first, I do not approve of using the term situation in Gaza. It is the situation in the occupied Palestine. Because what we have seen in Gaza, you can see in the West Bank. It happened in the West Bank before happening in Gaza. Destruction of villages, of towns, eviction of population, using severe policies and practices against the population. So, what is the idea? After the events of 7 of October, it became clear that there is a plan. And the plan is to give Israel the sovereignty over the totality of the Palestinian territories. To remove the Palestinian question from the table of attention. To fudge the issue of military occupation, because it is a case of military occupation. In the West Bank, Gaza, in the Golan, in Lebanon. A clear case. It seems to us before that there are limits of supporting Israel, and limits for ignoring the Palestinian rights. We discovered that there are no limits. International law should not be applied on Israel. Double standard. Could this be acceptable? And why is the exception? Especially in light of what the Prime Minister of Israel has stressed from the roster of the United Nations. And I believe he said so in the Congress before that. And he said it recently when he came back. There will be no Palestinian state. That's one. And that Israel will lead a new regional system, new regional order in the Middle East. Would this be opposed by all those who are responsible for the stability of the regional system, the stability of the world, or also encouraged? One important leader, Western leader, say that I see that he sees that Israel has a very narrow space to live in. That's what he said. They should have more terrorism. Would this be the case? And if this is the case, all of us should be worried about the future of the region. We will be facing tough times, tougher than what we have seen before. This would affect the business, would affect economic development, and as has been said by the pact of the Summit for the Future, Pact for the Future, a successful economy, successful economic development depends on whether peace and security prevail in that region. In all honesty, I am pessimistic. Many like me are pessimistic on the regional issue. Are there solutions? Of course there are solutions. First one is to answer the question, is Mr. Netanyahu there as the eternal leader of Israel who will determine what the government of Israel would do or not to do for the remainder of the future of the world? Or he would change? That's one. Two, is the Arab world going to be as divided as it has been for so many decades? Would it be possible that the Arabs will sit together and produce a certain position to say no when no is necessary to be said, and to say yes when they see that it is possible to go along with whatever proposition they receive? So I believe that Mr. Netanyahu is not the eternal one. Perhaps some other generation would come and understand and appreciate that the security of Israel lies in peace with its neighbor, not in bombarding them, destroying their homes, and killing their population. And I am here, have some optimism about the future of Arab relations. What we have seen yesterday, or the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia visiting Egypt, talking to the President Sisi, about the situation in the region and the future propositions, I feel that, yes, this is the way that both Egypt and Saudi Arabia would assume the leadership of this region insofar as this issue of war and peace, stability, solution of the Palestinian problem are concerned. Is there a solution for the Palestinian problem? Yes, indeed, there is. Provided that it is not Mr. Netanyahu who is the negotiator for Israel, and not a weak leader on the Palestinian side is leading the Palestinian delegation. For us to bring them together needs assurances, formal assurances, written assurances, because after all so many years, I don't believe what is being said just to please the people sitting in the room. There must be a plan sanctioned by the Security Council and the United Nations, regardless of their inability to act. But they have the ability to receive and to consider and to say what should be said. Effective or not effective, that is not the issue now on the point I'm talking about. For us here in Egypt, the prospects of progress, getting out of the economic crisis, charting a road, sure road to the future, requires an active role in making peace in this region. Of course, I'm not talking about what should be done internally on the economic situation in the private sector and how to deal with the economic crisis. But I see that there are some prospects here and there, chances, opportunities, if we have a plan. And I believe that we have a plan on how to rebuild the economy in Egypt, how to rebuild the soft power of Egypt, that is economy, economic, cultural, etc., in order to bring stability to this region. On Africa, we have this dual identity. On Africa, unfortunately, we face a major problem, threat to our lives, which is our existence even, which is the issue of the dam in Ethiopia. I want here to use the language, which is a positive one. There is no problem that defies all solutions. We can't solve the problem. When I talk to some friends from Ethiopia, they talk exactly like me. We must solve it. We cannot continue on confrontation footing all the time. And a dam that has been built to add to the economy, to the well-being of the people, should not be the dam to cause exactly the opposite to a neighbor of us. We have old relations with Ethiopia, historical relations with Ethiopia, and with the whole Horn of Africa. And the elements to rebuild such relations on solid, fair grounds are there. There is no place for us to just feel that the issue is impossible. The issue is not impossible at all. And the water of the Nile will continue to flow to Egypt and will not affect the Nile itself and the riparians. And here, I am not that pessimistic. I am not that pessimistic. Yes, indeed, there are 3 points that have to be stressed. The BRICS and its real effects, the Iran issue, and the high tech, the artificial intelligence and its effects. Of course, so many problems, new problems, will emerge as a result of the artificial intelligence and the prospects it opens and the threats it represents. Some of them would be considered as threats to international peace and security, as the climate change has been considered a threat to international peace and security, as pandemics also was proposed as an item under this title, threats to international peace and security. So this issue, in fact, I put before the organizers of the center here that it has to have a place on the agenda as a threat, of course, a prospect, but a threat too. What can? Recently, I read an article about the artificial intelligence and how it is not only going to تخليق مش خلق تخليق to create to make manufacture a human being, not human, a parallel to the human being, but not only to be a source of information, but a source of thinking, arguing, and answering questions about history and so on. One of the new things that have been mentioned is that they can manufacture this creation as Mr. Beethoven or Bertrand Russell or whoever, or even Karl Marx. And of course, many of you now are thinking of who in Egypt would be recreated in order to ask him, what have you done? So instead of reading books about this person, you can ask that creation, what do you think of this? What do you mean by that? And he can answer, and he would be, or she, by the way, able to tell you, yes, I am sorry. At that time, I didn't think of that issue, but I would answer you according to the considerations of the day. Just, you see how things are developing. Then the issue of BRICS. BRICS is an organization that is new to the system, and I believe it is one of the positive new grouping. But just look into the formation. This is China and India, and they would disagree on almost everything. China, Russia, would, in total disagreement with America. Brazil, South Africa, and the rest of those who joined. They can discuss things, and of course, in an independent way, separate from the imposition coming from the Western hegemony. But short of this, or beyond that, they cannot go anywhere. India is more on the Western side than on the Chinese-Russian side. Another positive thing, in addition to that point that it is a formation of countries that can say no to the hegemonic Western policies, the second point is about the presence of a leader of international stature, that is Lula, President Lula of Brazil, as a member and a capable personality of leading certain political trends that do not necessarily follow under the influence of super or big powers within the Brexit or outside of it. More than that, I believe it has been very ably explained that there are certain things that we can do, but not much. However, it is a positive sign. Now, Iran. Iran is a member of the Middle East. It's not an alien member. It was not created since 75 years. It is there since thousands of years. And we have to live with Iran. Iran has to live with us. And by the way, we in Egypt, we don't have this issue of Shia and Sunnah, etc. We passed this since long time. to the point of that one of our princesses were married to the Shah of Iran. And who administered and managed the marriage was Sheikh al-Azhar between the Shia bridegroom and the bride. So we don't have this. We have more comfortable relations when it comes to the basics of relations between societies and countries. But Iran has gone too far in its regional policy, to the point that one of its leaders declared that Iran has the authority to move things in four Arab capitals: Baghdad, Damascus, Beirut, and Sana'a. That was too much for us to swallow. Iran also does not recognize the Arab Initiative of Beirut 2002, which means that we are ready to make peace with Israel, provided that this peace would be based on certain bases and common elements that have to be there. There can be no peace while the occupation continues, for example. So we said we are ready not only to normalize, but also to recognize Israel. So the question of normalization, according to our initiative, is not a taboo. Normalization is not a taboo. But normalization has conditions. It's not a free of charge one. Has conditions to be built on, which is the withdrawal, the recognition of a Palestinian state, etc. And the issue of Jerusalem, issue of refugees, other things I suggest that you read this initiative again and to understand what is how the Arab position on this issue would be formulated, and it continues to work. That initiative continues to work. One of the Israeli goals, the goals of the Israeli policies is to cancel this initiative and try to write something else. I think that this is a very bad thing that we shouldn't approve of. We have a reasonable thing that has been recognized by the UN and the Security Council, by the Secretary Generals of the United Nations, and by so many countries. Therefore, Iran should recognize this initiative too. Iran adopts the Palestinian question as its main issue. The Palestinian question, that is good, but it is also, not also, it is a priority for the Arab world. Iran should cooperate with the Arab world, not take the issue in its hands and acts as if the Arab world does not exist. Iran is certainly one of us in the Middle East. And by the way, when I formally proposed to the Arab Summit back in 2010, the establishment, the creation of Arab neighborhood policies, I mentioned officially, that's the Secretary General of the Arab League, to the Arab Summit, that we have to invite all our neighbors to come and establish a community together, with two exceptions. Iran, that she would join us after we talk about the issue of Palestine and how to talk together and agree on the road for the future, and to solve the problems like with Iraq or with the Emirates, etc. And Iran would be acceptable and more than welcome. As for Israel, it is there. The only condition for Israel to join us, the neighborhood policy, is to recognize a Palestinian state, a viable Palestinian state. If it does so, there is no other problem. And the strange thing, and for this I can say that in such an intellectual gathering, we have a history of problems with Iran, Persia, the Arabs, etc. We had problems with the Ottoman Empire. For Israel, it's only 75 years old, or 70-something years old, and the problem is Palestine. If it cooperates in solving the Palestinian question, we'll have no other major problems with it. But it seems that they are not in the mood to accept the Palestinian question. Then there will be no mood in the Middle East to have a stable peace.